What's going on, everyone? It's Matt. Welcome back to Monday, where I am making another simple, easy to make recipe on Matt Makes. Today we are jumping into a classic recipe. We are going to make a chocolate chip cookie. There are probably hundreds of ways to make a chocolate chip cookie. The internet is just full of recipes. You can use different kinds of flour, different kinds of sugar, let them rest for a different amount of time. Like there's hundreds of different ways to go about it. Some of them even take days to make. In today's recipe, I'm going to show you the easiest way to get a really, really delicious cookie in a really, really short period of time.
So we start our chocolate chip cookies off with chocolate, as you can imagine. I'm going to use two different kinds of chocolate. I've got milk chocolate, and then over here I have dark chocolate. This is 72%. The lower that number, the darker, the more bitter the chocolate will be. You can see these are sort of those baker's chocolates things. I like using these instead of chocolate chips just because it's a little bit more interesting. I can get different sizes and I can cut these down into the pieces that I want. So I'm gonna go to the cutting board quickly, chop these up pretty roughly before we get started. Through the magic of television, we have our chocolate chunks here. I'm going to set these aside and we'll get out our stand mixer as we go through our three-step cookie process. So the first part of our cookie process involves creaming together butter, softened butter, and sugar. I'm going to use two different kinds of sugar, a brown sugar and white sugar. And we'll head over to the mixer. Going to use the paddle style attachments. I feel like my mixer's gotten pretty good workout in the last little bit. We used cinnamon buns last week, so if you didn't see it, it's up in the top corner. Attach these, then in goes our butter and sugar. And we'll start the mixer, mix for about a minute until this comes together. Next we add our salt, just scrape everything down, and mix for another minute. Again, after another minute, we're just going to scrape down the sides and add some vanilla extract. And we'll scrape this down one final time, but what we're doing is ensuring all of those ingredients are equally dispersed into the dough. Now we're going to let this run on medium-low speed for about 2 minutes. After about 2 minutes, I'm going to add in an egg. And then let this mix until there are no signs of eggs left, about 30 seconds. Now that has all come together, we're gonna turn our mixer down to its lowest speed and add in our flours. First flour I have is some cake flour and a bit of bread flour. And add in our chocolate chips. We wanna mix this until it's just combined, being careful not to overmix it. I'm gonna turn off the mixer and do the last bit by hand. This might be my favorite part of the whole process. So I'm going to give these a mix. I'm just going to get to the bottom of the bowl and make sure there's no flour left at the bottom, just to make sure everything's incorporated. All right, let's go portion these out. I've got my dough. I'm going to use this ice cream scoop to portion out my cookie dough. I'm going to make 100-gram cookies. I like making them a little bigger because this way it's a little harder to overcook them. You can do it however you want. I know this is about 50 grams per scoop, so I'm going to do 2 scoops and portion these out here. And I'm going to loosely just combine these and make sure they're a little ways away from each other. And now probably the most important step of the whole cookie making process is these cookies need to rest in the fridge to cool down for at least 2 hours, ideally 4 hours. So we'll set these aside and we'll be back shortly. So our cookies have been in the fridge for about 2 hours. This resting in the fridge is really, really important. It helps to hydrate the flour, which basically means you're gonna get a cookie that holds together really well, both while it's cooking and afterwards. And it cools down the butter, which is gonna help prevent the butter from bleeding. Remember, we used room temperature butter when we created the dough. Preventing the butter from bleeding is going to help you get a cookie with those crispy edges, but still a really soft center, which is what we're after. Let's throw these in the oven 12 minutes or so at about 350. Be really careful not to overcook your cookies. Into the oven we go. So my cookies are almost ready to come out. I'm going to get a wire rack and just set this here. This way, as the cookies are cooling, air can pass sort of all the way through them. So after about 12 minutes, our cookies are done. I'd always found it a little bit tough to know when to take out cookies. You're looking for something that still feels, a little bit undercooked in the center here. We'll let these rest. We're gonna let them sit on this wire rack for about 15 minutes until they're completely cool. So our cookies are done. They rested for about 15 minutes. Let's give them a try. It's very, very soft, very chewy. Let's give this piece a try. It's super delicious. If you like them a little crispier, you can leave them in for another 2 minutes. I think this is just perfect like this. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. We'll see you next time.